Welcome back to another video. This will be regarding Blender and Inkscape. So we are going to import a car within Blender. We're going to do a rendering and afterwards we're going to move that on a banner over here within Inkscape. So let's get started. I will import the car. The car will be within an FBX file. So this will be over here. We see the car. This will have no materials assigned. So we have the car loaded. I'm gonna delete the default cube. I will also enable screencast keys so you can better visualize the changes that I will do. Now I will enable over here the viewport shading. You can also do this by pressing Z and you're gonna see the material preview over here on the bottom. So this is a little bit faster than clicking over here on the top section. Now I will select over here the car chassis. And if I will press G in order to grab it, I will see that all of those elements will be linked together. Now, I will attach the same color to all of those, but afterwards I will split the geometry so that I can open the door over here. So, I will create a new material. I will choose a gray color for this, a little bit lighter. And I will add a metallic texture over here. I will name the material car paint in this case. And afterwards I will select the model. I will press tab. I will also press A to select everything, even though they were already selected. Now I will press P in order to separate, and I want to separate this by loose parts. And now we're going to have the door and the other elements divided over here. Now let's add some materials over here as well for the wheel. So I will create a new material. I will call this tire, and I will add a black material in this case. I will apply the same material to all 4 wheels, and afterwards I will create one for the rims. So I will select this, I will add a new material, and for this I will go again for something which will be gray. And I want to add some metallic, and I want to remove some of the roughness over here. I will name this material rims, and I will add that to all the rims of the car. So all 4 elements will have the same material. Over here I will select this mesh, and we're gonna see that multiple elements will be within the same selection. I can apply the same material for all of those. I'll just call this black because I'm gonna add a black material for those. I will add a little bit of metallic, and we're gonna see how that will look. I can also split those, but initially I will just leave it like that. We're gonna have the underbody of the car, so I will just assign the same black material over here because this will not be that visible. Over here we have these fins. I will assign the same car paint for those. We have this black plastic, so I will again do the same material for that, so this will go a little bit faster. Over here for these chrome ornaments, I will create a new material, so let me select those. I will call this chrome. And again, I will use the default colors over here in order to recreate that material. So for the chrome, I will increase over here the metallic, and also the roughness I will go a little bit lower. We can also change the index of refraction over here. As we can see, this will give us the following highlights over here. Now, over here on this element, this will have the same material, and since those 2 mirrors will be linked together, initially I will press tab, A, P, and I will separate them by loose parts, and afterward I will apply those materials. So those should have the car paint, this rear element as well. We're gonna have this exhaust, which I will add a chrome material over here. We have over here the element for the headlights, and they will all be linked together. So I will initially separate those by loose parts, and afterwards we can add individual materials. We have over here the caliper. So in this case, for the caliper, I will go for something black, and I will make this more rough. So I'll call this caliper, and I will have that assigned to all 4 calipers. As we can see, if I will select 2 of those calipers and I will assign the material, only the last selection will receive that. So I'm gonna assign it like this. We're gonna have the ornaments, which will be individual over here. I can make those with chrome as well. So let's see, chrome. We're gonna have the brake disc over here. So I will define a new material. Let's call this disc brake, and let's slightly adjust the color for that. Make it a little bit more metallic. And we're gonna have the center of that disc, which I will use the same. Now for the final render, we're gonna do a perspective like this. Therefore, I will not go into details regarding the texturing of the back over here. So mostly like this, but I will also want this door to open, to have that slightly open within the final render. So this caliper will be visible, this brake, sorry, will be visible, so I will address that. This ornament as well, so I'm gonna make that. We have over here the bolt. We see that only the top model of geometry is present over here, so I will make that let's say the same color as the rims over here, so I will not define a new material. We have over here the locking, so those will be again multiple elements. I will select and have those splitted by loose parts so that I can only assign the material over here. I will make this I will just make them using the same chrome material. Over here as well, we're gonna see how many of the interior elements are linked together. So again, I'm gonna split those because I want this black shiny element to be separated, and I will make it black. This will also be visible within the final render, so I will address this texture as well. We have this ornament, which will be chrome. Okay, so let's take a look over here. For the headlight, I will create a new material. I will call this headlight, and I can go with the alpha lower, so we have that transparency over here. I can add the same over here as well, so headlight. Over here we're gonna have an emblem. We could add a new texture and add an image over here, but for this case study I will just make this like that, since within the final render that emblem will not be that visible and important. Let's see over here underneath the headlight, I'm gonna press H to hide it. If I'm gonna select this, the headlight will look like this. So this will be the back side, let's say plastics over here. So I will just separate those, and I will assign a black material to those. Afterwards, we're gonna have this interior. Again, I'm gonna make it black. These elements over here, I will just add the rim texture over here. And over here for the headlight glass, I can assign the same glass material. So this headlight, the same headlight over here. And as you can see, this will have the name headlight silver. So I will just create a new material, silver. Let's add that arrow over here as well, and change that. Over here where we're gonna have the lens, I'm just gonna add a color over here, but we could go and position a light underneath that, so that within the final render we're gonna have those a little bit better defined. But I will just make this material for the zeolite over here. This I will make that black. In this case we can also make it silver, so it will be within the same texture pattern over there. And again we're gonna have this headlight glass over here, and I will use the same material, so we're gonna see those underneath it. And I can select those, and this will be a chrome background. At the end, if I will press Alt and H, that will unhide everything. And we can do the same over here onto the other side. So let me just rapidly do this. Because we already have the materials defined, that will be the headlight. Over here we're gonna have the black background. And over here, again, we're gonna have those elements, which I added the black texture. And this will have the headlight material, this as well, and this will have the black background. And over here for that I also made it silver on the other side, so I want to maintain the same. Okay, so as you can see over here, those elements were also silver, so let's just make it the same. Usually for this step, if I wouldn't have divided geometry and applied the texture, maybe it would have been a little bit faster. But for now, I will leave it like this. So over here, I will add that chrome and have all of those unhidden. So, okay, and we still have the glass over here, the windows. We need to divide those because we also want to open the door. So press Tab, A, P, separate by loose parts. And let's apply that, let's make a new material, and I'll call this windshield, and I want to lower the alpha for this as well, and have that applied to the side windows as well. You can also type in a word, and you're gonna filter those, as you can see over here. That will work a little bit faster. And we have over here this element, we see the headlight glass, and I will just use the same headlight material over here. I can now select it, separate it by loose parts, and underneath that we're gonna have this chrome element, which I will add a chrome texture. Okay, so underneath that, hide it, select the underneath element, add that chrome, and unhide all of those. Now for the interior, I will just select over here, as we can see, this will be a black interior. I will just add a black texture. We're gonna have this black element as well. We're gonna have the seats, they will be divided like this. So let's just add some black textures so we can get started with our rendering. We can also go into details and add some leather materials. We can make use of Blender Kit over here, but the case study will be mostly on the 2D aspects regarding the roll-up, and this is why I will not go into details over here how we can recreate that leather, but we can easily do that over here within Blender Kit. But it will require a bit of more adjusting, and I will create a separate video just regarding that, where I will add additional lights and other elements in order to increase the quality of the final render. Okay, now we have the following elements over here. I will add over here the silver material on those elements. We see over here, this will have a little bit of different color, so I will just add again that maybe that silver material is not that great, so I will just create a new one, and I will make it a little bit less dark over here. We see over here the interior over here should be red. We can also go online and search some reference for this. but for this case study, as within the final render, this will be the view. I will not go into details regarding the interior over here. We see over here again, this should be red. I will just create a simple material over here, and I will make this slightly reddish. So I want this to be roughened, but I don't want it to be that red over here. So if I will go with the roughness all the way to 0, it will look like this, all the way to 1 like that. I shouldn't add a metallic aspect to this, but overall this red color looks a bit off for the interior, so I will just go with a different color over here. So something like gray material. Okay, and let's just name that interior and have it applied over here where those will be as well visible. I will just add some black elements as well, and some black elements on the background. We have that defined, so I'll just make this black. The original model should have a carbon fiber over here onto the middle and some red elements, but we are not gonna go for that over here. We can add over here the infotainment and those as images, but this should be more than fine for this. So I press Alt and H to have all of those unhidden. And now let's address this rotation for the door. And also we're gonna do a little bit of texturing over here on the inside. So a quick tip to jump within the car is to select, for example, the steering wheel. Afterwards press the comma on the numpad, that will zoom you towards the selected. And over here you can easily rotate over here. So let's just add those elements over here. This should have that interior. This should be black. And again, we're gonna have this black element over there. Okay, so we have most of the textures assigned. If I will select the door, we're gonna see that the pivot point will be located over here in the middle. That means if I will press R to do a rotation, I will press Z to select the axis, the door will rotate like this. If I will press Y, this will be the pivot point. But as we can see, the pivot point should be located over here on this top edge. Therefore, I'm going to hold down Shift. I will do a right click over there. That will move the 3D cursor. And I will go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. We're going to have that orange dot swapped over here. And now if I press R and Y for rotation, the door will open like this. So all we have to do now is to assign those elements. So in this case, I want everything regarding this. If I will do a selection like this, we're gonna see that all of those elements will follow the door. So I will just press Tab, A, and I want to separate all of those by loose parts, because I only want to align this mirror to follow this door. So I redo a selection over here. If you don't have the rectangle selection, make sure that you are within box select over here, so you can easily select that. If you select more than you want, you can hold down Control and just intersect the other elements. If you want to verify your selection, you can press the slash, and this will zoom into the selected object. So in this case, I saw that I only selected the mirror. Now I will hold down Shift, select the door, and I will do a parent-child link by holding down Control P. And I want to set the parent to Object Keep Transform. And now I can rotate that, and I'm gonna see that the mirror will follow along. So all that I have to do now is to select the interior over here, and I can easily do that. All of these elements will be linked together, so again I will need to split those by loose parts over here as well, because I don't want the steering wheel and the others to follow along, the bottom elements as well. And now I can see that those will be okay. So I will hold down Shift, and all the elements associated with the door, which will be that one, this, those. I want them to follow along the door, so I will also do some selections like this and see if there are any elements that will remain. And we see that as well. We have that ornament, which I will take as well. I'm going to rotate onto the other side, hold down shift, and I will select that, that, and that. And also the small element over here, and we're going to have two lock elements. So that one. And we still have the middle one. Okay, and now we see that we have those selected. And all that I have to do is to select the last element to be the door. And I will press Ctrl P, and I want to set the parent to object with keep transform. So the second option. And now if I will rotate the door, we're going to have the following. Since this door hasn't been modeled for, let's say, interior rendering like this, with the door open, you're going to see that over here we won't have any geometry. So we can do some changes over here. We can add some solidify elements, or we can start filling in the geometry. But for this case study, I will just add a little bit of solidify to the interior. And that will also help us if you want to take this and take it within Unity, for example, where we're going to create a showroom, to better visualize that. Because otherwise we're going to need double-sided materials, since everything that we have modeled over here doesn't have thickness. So for example, if I will select this element, over here we have no thickness. So let's just select this door, and now I usually prefer to use some nominal values when I go to do the rotation. For example, if I will press R to do the rotation for the door, I will press Y, and if I'm going to move this forward, I'm going to see over here in the top left that over here on the top this will be with minus. So I can just type in minus 90 degree, and the door will open like that and will snap into position. And I can start working on the elements over here. So for example, I can select this door over here, and I can add a modifier. I can add a solidify onto the interior of the car. So I can add a little bit of geometry to that. This will mostly help us within rendering within Unity. For this case study, just for the roll-up within Inkscape, it's not mandatory, so I will just leave it like this with positive, because I want this to go onto the inside, and with 0.4, for example. And now if I want to snap the door back into position, I can just select it, press R for rotation, Y, and I know that if I will go to 90 degrees, this will go back to the original position. I press Alt and H in order to have that unhidden, the window. And we can get started with this. We can also create a simple animation. So I will expand this. I will select the door. Now I will press this button, which will be auto keying. And if I will keep the mouse within the viewport, this is important, because if I will move it over here, if I'm gonna start typing in keyboard shortcuts, those will be a little bit different over here than the ones within the viewport. So I want to add a rotation point over here. This will be the starting point for the rotation of the door. So I will press R for rotation. Afterwards, I'm going to press Y for the axis, and I will press enter. And we're going to see a little yellow element appearing over there. So that is the initial keyframe. Now will need to go within the timeline 20. This will be roughly 4 seconds if you're going to go for a frame rate of 40 frames per second. So that means that we're going to have 30 still images that will be interpolated for each second of the animation. And over here I can just add the final point when I want to have this rotated. So I press R for rotation, Y, and I'm going to type in minus 90. And we're going to see that we're going to have that interpolation point added over there. If I will just play through this by holding down the left click, we're going to see how that will look. If I will go from the start, and I will press play, and within 4 seconds that door will open. We can always move this. For example, if I will move it all the way over here to 240, I will also move the starting point to be over here, so at 1. If I will move this, now it will take a lot longer because we're gonna need 250 frames in order to achieve that. Okay, so let's prepare this for the rendering. We're gonna see over here that we don't actually have this interior modeled, so, and we also don't have this window following along, so let's fix that. I will go all the way within 1. I will select this window, the door, Ctrl P, keep. See how that window will follow along. Okay, so for the final render, since we don't have that modeled, I will just leave the door slightly open like this. So it will not be that visible, that we are missing a lot of geometry. We're still gonna miss a lot of geometry over here anyway, so it's not that important. I will just hide it like this from the viewport. Now, within Blender I had a default camera because I didn't delete that. If you don't have that, you can always press Shift and A and you can add a camera. Now, I want to center the camera to do the rendering, so I can use this button, which will be toggle the camera view. This is the initial location of the camera. We see an isometric view onto the car. And if you want to move the camera now and have that aligned to the final render, I can press N, I can go within view, I can select camera to view, and now we're gonna see this outline with a dotted line within the viewport. And now if I will rotate over here, I will actually move that camera. So I want for my final render something like this. Now I can just uncheck that. I can press N to have that go back. And if I will leave that camera view, we're gonna see that this will be the position. So that camera has been moved to position. And every time I want to go over here, I can just press 0 on the numpad, and that will take me over here within the final render. Even though within the viewport, if I will leave it like this, and I will press F12 in order to do a rendering, we're gonna see that the camera will be positioned like that. Now, we see within the final render, this will be the output. We don't have a lot of light. We also have this that we can also assign a material. I will just slightly assign a new material, and I will make this red, let's say light, and I will slightly add a red tint over here to that. Now, in order to see the lighting within the viewports, we're gonna go over here all the way to viewport shading. And now we can see in real time what exactly is the lighting situation within our scene. And we have this default light over here, which is a point light, and I can move it around the scene. I can change this to an area or other types. We see the power, this will be 1000 watts, so quite a lot of power. We have the possibility to add additional light by pressing Shift A. I will go to light. And for example, I can come with an area light that I will move it slightly above the car. I will slightly move it over here on the y-axis. Okay, so someone in the front. I can have this scaled, but as you can see, this scaling will change a little bit the highlights on the car, but we also need to change the power. And I can also have this rotated. For example, in this case, on the x-axis, it will rotate like this, so that it will be positioned in front of the car. And I can also slightly off-center it, because the final render will be from this direction. And I can also increase the light over here. And I can copy an existing light by pressing Shift D, and I can just move it within the scene. So something like that. And now if I will press F12, the final render will look like this. It's important not to add too many powerful lights, because if you're gonna have elements that will be in white, those will lose a lot of details over here. And over here for the glass material, I will just save this scene before I will use some materials from Blender Kit. So let's call this car render. I will go over here and will type in some glass materials. I will also enable this. So let's see, this will be broken glass, this will be frosty glass. I will add that over here. And we're gonna see how that will look different from the default material that I created initially. Again, for the headlights, we can use the same, and so the same elements over here, and they will look a lot better. Now, if I will go again for the final render and press F12, we're gonna see how that glass will now look. And over here for the headlights, we can go for something differently. Let's say raindrops on glass, and I will add that over there. And those should have a little bit of rain droplets assigned. Let's just do another render because I see a lot of highlight over there. So this, in this case, we can select the material, and this will be a more complex material, as you can see over here within the shading. I can go a little bit on that, and usually we need to check over here for various elements. So we have this noise, we have the texture, so those will be the droplets of rain position over here. But overall we have some problem with the highlights over here. So depending on how the model was created, we can change over here this roughness, as we can see, or this metallic. I would like to get rid of those highlights over here. So if I will make this with a different roughness, let's see if those did any changes. So I press F12, but again we're still gonna see those highlights. So maybe there are a bit of other changes that need to be done. We can also do a rotation for that glossy effect. Let's see if that will change that highlight, but as you can see, that won't do it. So depending on how the materials was created, it's usually required to go and fine tune those, or we can go for a different material. For example, let's see. Okay, so condensed glass, car windshield glass. Let's just put this over here, even though this will be for the headlight. And we're gonna see that light will still be over there. That's also linked with the area light that I added over here. So I can maybe move this onto the y-axis, onto the other side, and I can add an additional point light over here. And if I will redo the render, we're gonna see that now it will look like that. So where we had that initial glass material, we're still gonna have a lot of noise. We can also change that with one from Blender Kit, and it will look a lot better. We can also go over here within the render properties, and over here we can do some changes. This will be set to Eve. I will leave it like this. We're gonna have the sample set to 16. We can increase that for better quality. We can also change the output. For example, this will be a full HD resolution. I can have this increase, for example, to a 4K resolution, and I can just type in those values. And now if I will press F12, the rendering will take a little bit more time to do, to process, but now I can zoom in, and only over here it will become pixelated at the following zoom, for example, on that emblem. Now, if I will save this image, I will save it on my desktop. I will call this car side. Even though this will be saved as a PNG file over here, the file format, we're gonna see that we're still gonna have the background. So I'm gonna jump within Inkscape. I will create a new, in this case, an A4 portrait. So I will not go for a roll-up for this one. Over here, we're gonna have the dimension of the artboard. We can change it over here. We can also, within the page tool, we can create and edit documents. Or we can also go over here, so we see the width in pixels over here. Or we can go over here within document properties. And this will be set over here to millimeters. Over here, this will be converted to pixels for the export batch. And now I want to add some graphic elements for the roll-up. So to do that, I will go over here, and I can go with import. I can also drag and drop the file that I want to, but I will go with import in this case. And I know that on my desktop I had the following PDF file, rollup 4. This is the naming. I will open this. I want to import this internally. And fonts, I want to draw missing fonts, or I can have those substitutes. So I can leave it like this because I don't want those text elements. I mostly want the graphic elements. And we're going to see that those will be added over here within this separate artboard. Now, if I will decide which pattern to use, which design graphic over here, I will go for the one over here on the left side. But I will have to scale this in order to fit the A4 format, and as we can see, this will have a different format. Therefore, I will initially do a selection, and I will grab all of those follow us elements. Over here, you can hold down Control and scroll wheel in order to zoom in, and I will move these all the way over here, and I will also group those. Now I can just select one, and all of those will be selected. I can do the same for the text over here. If I want to keep that, I can have it grouped and have it. Okay, let me just select that again. I only want to catch those in the middle, the headlight as well, the headline. I can group those and I can move them over here to the side. And now I have the graphic elements over here, which again I can do a selection. I can right click, I can group those, and now I can move the whole group over here. And over here I can center it and fit it. Since I know the exact dimension of the A4, I can just select this grouped element and I can type in the values over here. So for the width, the A4 portrait will have 210 millimeters. For the height, this will be 297. And I can just add 0 for the starting point. So that will be now perfectly aligned over there. I can move some of the other elements. For example, this about us, follow us. I will move it over here. And if I will hold down Control, I can have this scaled. And I can have this position. So let's say that maybe I want to leave it somewhere over here. I will slightly make it smaller so that it will be better aligned over here. We can also center this over here. We're going to see that I can select this and we can go to align and distribute, and we can have this center on the vertical axis. And that means the middle of this element will be aligned with the middle for the one in the back, for the graphic element. Now I want to bring in the car over here, so I can go to import and I can select that, or I can drag and drop it for my desktop. I know that this will be the file, so I can have it selected and drag and dropped and embedded over here. We're going to see that this will be quite large since I render it at 4K. And now if I will position like this, this will be on top of everything because this was the last element added. We can go over here with raise and lower, and I can move it behind those graphic elements. Or I can go over here within the layer and objects, and we're going to have all of those paths added. So this will be the image. If I want this to be on top of all those graphic elements, because now we see that it's behind this reference, but on top of all of those, I can just move this higher within the hierarchy. And if I'm going to leave this underneath objects, this will now be on top of everything. We can also change this over here by just going to the bottom, and this will take it all the way on to the back of the list. Or I can move it again to the front. So that's really handy when we want to, let's say, center those and align those. I will leave the car like this, and I will scale it. But as we can see over here, we're going to have this background. So we could take this to GIMP and have it cropped so it will not have a background. But it is a lot easier to just do the rendering with no background within Blender. So to do that, I will jump within Blender. And over here, we need to do some changes to the render. So I will go to Render Properties. I will go to Film. And over here, I need to check this transparent. And as soon as I will do that, we're going to have that checkerboard added over here. And now if I will press F12, this will do me a new render. And as we can see over here, we're gonna no longer have a background. I can go to image, save as, and I will just call this car side 1. I will hit save. And now if I will drag and drop the new render towards Inkscape, this will overlap like this without any background, and it will look a lot better on the white background that we have over here. So I will position the car something like this, and now we can continue over here and adding some elements. For example, I will add a simple rent a car text over here. So rent a car. We're gonna see that this font will be set in my case to 9. We can change the font type over here. I will slightly increase this, for example, to 45. I will hold down Control and zoom out. And if I want to move this onto my roll-up, I'm going to see that the text will be all the way on the top over here. So as you can see, this will overlap everything. If I will slightly move it underneath this image, so image 1.1, this will be the render that we just brought in. So now this will be positioned underneath that. If I will hold down Alt and scroll over here, I can see over here different elements, and I can visualize where that rent-a-car will be added. But in this case, I want this to be on top of everything. And I will just move it over here. If you want to change the size of the font, it's not mandatory to double click this, and this will take you to edit mode for the text tool. You can always hold down Control. This will maintain that scaling. If I will not hold down Control, we're going to see that the text will deform like this. So hold down Control when you are scaling it in order to maintain that proportion. So we can add over here a text, and we can slightly go and change this. Now for the final export, we're going to save this as a PDF file, and I will just center this by going over here, and I will align it to be at the middle. So let's see how we can do that export. If I will go now to File, Export, we can choose over here to do this as a PDF. I will call this banner 1. If I will hit save, we're going to have a preview over here. So that will be taken into account. So we have those elements that are positioned to the outside. If I will do a selection like this, and I will choose export only, we're still going to have that background over here. So if I will just save this as a banner 2, and if I will open this, banner 1 look like this. So we see in this case, when I did that selection, I didn't grab that, that car. Within banner 1, we had all of those elements over here. So let's see how exactly we're going to save just the A4 that we want over here. So we're going to do a little bit of cleaning over here. I will select this, and I will press delete. I don't no longer want those elements. I can select this element, and if I'm just going to press delete like this, I just deleted the background, which was white over here. So I will also select those and delete those. But over here, this will be a new page, so the one on the right. And to change that, we're going to go over here to Page Tools. And now I can select that, I can press delete, and now that has been removed. I can go back to normal selection. And now if I'm going to save this, we see over here that since our image over here slightly extends outside, that will also be positioned like this. So over here for this object, we should do a little bit of trimming so that it will not extend outwards. So in this case, if I will just have this scaled and position it in the middle so that it will not extend over here, I will not have any problems. But if not, I could do a trimming of this image. We can use GIMP for that. I'm not sure exactly if you can do that directly over here within Inkscape, but I think it can be done. But in this case, I will just slightly make this smaller so that it will not go onto the exterior of the file. And now if I will go and have this saved as a portable banner 3, I will hit save. We're gonna have the final element over here. As you can see, we don't have any bleeding, so we can also change that, because usually when we're gonna take this to printing, some printers are not able to print it over here directly onto the border, so we can leave an area for that, a bleeding page, and so on. Okay, so this is how we can easily create a banner design, starting with Blender and Inkscape, two open source solutions that are perfect for this kind of job. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this kind of content. I will position a similar video over here on the left side, and I will also add a subscribe button to the right. So that's it. Thanks for watching.